Wow. Okay. How do you center yourself into a space after dealing with all of that kind of stuff? The answer is you better figure it out. It's not like stop doing something or get rid of something. It's about transmuting it, as we've learned over the last few days. And we've been deep into this transmutation. We're changing self. We actually are making some upgrades. We're changing our patterns. We're actually looking at the things that are around us, and we're changing the view. We're being more concerned about what we keep feeding our subconscious mind and programming our subconscious mind with. And also with just cause. There is a situation happening in the world. I just call it the great motivator. You could call it the revelators and the motivators. Those are the things that get us to change these habits, or else maybe we get stuck. Maybe we go nowhere. And I don't think that that's really our parents' intention. In fact, I've been these days like, man, grandma, you really do go in on the transformations, don't you? Hopefully one day I aspire to be like you. Thanks, grandfather, for really teaching us how to man up in the whole thing. I hope to one day aspire to be like you and to understand why you move like you move. And yesterday I got the opportunity to sit in with the ancient ones. I say it like that because there's always the elder gods, and the difference is the elder gods are like a part of this immediate creation, like the organs, the chakra centers, human being 2.0, all the structures, even the planets. Jupiter, Mars, those are all the elder gods. All these names sound old, but the ancient ones are like their precursors, their predecessors. And so, how do I get into these spaces? I listen. I go out and I sit somewhere where it's quiet and I can only hear nature, and I listen. But before I even get to that, because you should know how to do this by the end of this transmission today, I want to really give you a window in of the environment and how things are for all of us. I don't want you to think that just because I'm Seven Bomar and whatever the mind can put behind that, that I don't deal with the same situation that everyone deals with in life. In fact, the real reason why I believe the message has gone on for 10 years and been so popular is because it updates in real time. It's not like a guru necessarily sitting there and just telling you what they already know. It's a partner, a friend, a companion that is on the journey with you and ready to let you read the diary of the process that I have to go through. And I feel many that are synchronistically entwined with this relationship with self also have to go through. And the environment for me has been testing, to say the least. Load testing, load balancing. This is when, if you have a lot of things that you're responsible for doing anyway, it's based on your design. If more stuff is all of a sudden put on that, more responsibility, more tuning in that you need to do, more time for self that you need, and all this, how do you really handle that? And today is a really good day to really highlight the power of when you do become big, right? Because Jupiter is obviously a gas giant and it is symbolic. Now, when I refer to any of these planetary systems, I'm not telling you to go to Google tonight and figure out how you're going to worship something external. What I'm telling you is these beings exist inside of you, and every time they gave you a emblem or a statue or a symbol or anything, it was to try to unfold, especially if it was a symbol, a deeper mystery that sometimes about the inside of you that sometimes cannot be just explained because you need to learn it from the inside. And we talked about that no one taught you how to breathe with a book and said, here's how to breathe, baby. You learn that from the inside. So there's many things that we learn from the inside, and then we figure out a way to articulate it externally. But it's important that, especially for all of us on this journey, that we internally learn to do what we're doing. Not that we can articulate it completely, but we don't know how to do it. So yesterday, when I'm sitting in and I go into this meditation, and now, first of all, the gateway, like, what is the bridge? What is the way in which you obtain this state that gets you into what you clearly know is the form of consciousness that is like, yeah, the more I go there, the more I see about the truth, even if I avoid going there. Because the thing about things that raise the consciousness, especially for a sluggish consciousness, is it's not always trying to go there. It's not always trying to activate. Once you figure out the activation button, trust me, sometimes it'll sit there not being pressed because activations are a real thing. They're wild. You're gonna go in there and you don't know what to expect. And I realized yesterday that everybody has their different forms of this. My brother Soul was with me. He was talking about how he's able to dial in deep when he's in his practice with his martial arts and his practice with his functional patterns, and how that takes him into this state where he's now clearly able to push past his mind and really tap into himself. Some, they may have a mushroom or two. Others, they may do that when they run. Some do that with breath and breathing. Whatever way you do it, I have my ways too, but everybody has their way. That was what the ancient one said first, is that, listen, and I'm just going to articulate this in English for you. Everybody has their way of coming in. We gave every single person their way to coming in. So it's not like that they can't get in. It's just that they now need to make it a habit to keep coming in. And that's how it's always been. And when it's your choice to whether you want to come in or not, which is in this space, a lot of this stuff is based on our choice. This is so much of a choice A and B reality that we're living in right now, true or false kind of reality. We empowered ourselves with choice as our ultimate power. But then now we have to have discernment in order to begin to make the right choices about what we should be doing and how we should be spending our time and what's really important. So there's this aspect that you can go into that actually takes you into an advanced state of consciousness, or at least starts getting you into that mode and into that state. And then when life gets super busy, especially on the external side of things, you gravitate away from that. You forget about that. You stop putting that into practice. And then the world, it becomes so overwhelming. It's almost like you even forget that you have that. Like many people have forgotten right now that you are immortal. So you're like, if you're going to catch something and die, I mean, I still think you're going to deal with a situation that you probably would be trying to figure out right now. So what is beyond this? And that was really what I came in with to the ancient ones, to the ancestors, was that about, so what should we do about beyond this, like right now? Can I get a new update on that? Because I know what to do. Yeah, just like everybody else, I know what to do, but I do like to ask if I have the opportunity, and you're here for me. And I know you'll always be here for me. So can you give me an update based on how I comprehend things now? Because that's another point. Sometimes if you read a book 10 years ago about, let's say, spirituality, deep insights, great words, etc., and then you read it 10 years later, you get a whole different meaning of it, a deeper meaning behind what is being said. You catch stuff. You can even do that sometimes with a good rap tune. You go back and you hear a lyric, you're like, now I know what he meant. I see what you did there. And it's like the first time, though, or the first few times you didn't get it. It wasn't at that level of depth. So I check back in all the time to see, based on the new level of depth that I've reached, what is now the level of clarity that I'm at with what needs to be done. And I also went down to a river that the Mamos had an opportunity to consecrate, which was rather interesting because the moment that I put my feet in the water, I thought of the names that they were mentioning. They had said some names, and the moment I touched the water, I remember that name. Now, if you had asked me about the name, like what name did they have, I'd been like, well, let me go back to my notes, or let me replay the recording. So this came straight from the divine consciousness, and I stepped in the water, and then the name came into my mind, and I sat there, and I started going deeper and deeper into the meditation. And it started first with basically the introduction of saying, now just listen. Just listen. Because as we discussed before, when you're thinking, you're talking. When you're talking, you're talking. So what listening means is that you've somehow gained an ability to stop the thinking and to stop the talking. Now, as I said earlier, everybody has a way of the practice of doing this. I can't tell you that once I started going in deeper and deeper, I stopped thinking and I stopped talking. It did recede a bit, which was giving me more and more clarity. But this is a practice. I have to come every single day and to the point where there are no thoughts and I'm only listening. But in the moment of about 70% thoughts and 30% listening as I'm going through the vibrations and the frequencies, and I'm feeling the chakra center start to widen and open up. I'm brought to the awareness of just how powerful the ear is. And I don't want people to get too deep on this and start texting me and saying, well, what if I'm deaf in my right ear? What if don't overthink this. Whatever the ear is, you have one on the spiritual level. And I was being shown how the ear, which is what I call the third ear or the holophonic ear, is directly tied into the third eye. And then rolled out the newest crystallization of what I need to be on point with and maybe what I should advise others to be on point with. The first thing is that I was hearing all of these sounds. I can even make one of these sounds. It sounds like this. You hear that? That's a weird sound. I don't know how many people know how to make that sound. I just used to play with sounds all the time when I was a little kid, and I was like, ah. And that one actually gets my daughter going to sleep sometime when she's just like zero chill. So if I do that, at least when she was younger, she'd do something. But anyway, it sounds like a popping / octopus / frog, amphibian, nature bubbling kind of slimy kind of thing going on. Now, of course, then this is the activation of the third ear, because basically you're hearing nature's sounds, nature's movements, nature's funkendating components, and all this kind of stuff. And you're capable of hearing this. You have this ultrasonic third ear to be able to tap into this, right? And so as this is projecting and coming through, it always starts this process of making me feel first like a little leery of what's happening. It's just foreign. I'll put it like that. It just is so foreign. And what was happening as I was going through this process is I was starting to see how the mind was saying it was foreign, and then trying to create a picture of what it looks like and what it's experiencing. I'm just giving you a play-by-play here. I even saw my face just kind of like smearing. But I was able to catch that it was the mind doing that. In the mind's feverish hostility of trying to identify everything, it was just like playing charades. Like, it's this, it's this, it's this. And I was able to catch it enough to say, okay, just sit down. Just stop doing that. You're not even getting it. And not to mention, I can remember every time we go on journeys, you always do this. So get out of here and let me process this, not from I'm trying to understand it, I'm trying to comprehend it, but just that I'm listening. And I'm going to sit here and I'm going to listen a long time before I come into any judgments about it. And so as that began to happen metaphysically, I started to hear other elements. I started to hear fire or fuel. I started to hear all this, where this was coming from. And then I engaged the narrator. The narrator is like, we'll explain what's happening, but in very short, concise revelations. And in this process, the narrator was like, so you see how this is that when your two eyes close, you'll be done with that world that you're in. You won't be able to see that world anymore. That may seem like common sense, but again, common sense ain't common. But here's what's going to happen. You hear that, what you're hearing right now? That's a world too. And it's way more realer than the world you're even in right now. The issue is you cannot see this world because your faculties need to be trained a bit more. I'm not saying anything is being done wrong. This being was very clear, explained. Listen, I'm not saying that you've done it wrong before, you've been doing it wrong, now you need to do it right. That's not what we're saying. We're just saying that the current way you were doing things has now exceeded its potential. You've reached the end. Congratulations. This is much as you can. You've gone as far as you can go with the two external eyes. And now you need to understand this knowledge directly about the practice of what needs to go on with the inner eye and the sounds that you're hearing. And I'm going to show you why. Notice where your consciousness is. So I noticed that my consciousness was pointed like in this direction. Like it was a little bit off to the right side. Like I could feel everything, like even me trying to think that everything was off to the right side. And I've noticed this before in the meditations, by the way, but this time I noticed just how strong everything was coming from this direction. So what I always try to do is I try to bring the consciousness back into the center. And as I started trying to bring the consciousness in the third eye back into the center so I can focus, it was resisting. It was like I was in a ship and the inertia and the turbulence and all of that from even trying to turn out of the direction it was going was like too much. If you ever watch a movie where the pilot's like trying to take the plane out of a tailspin or whatever, it was feeling like that. So the consciousness, the being, the ancient one, the higher self, whatever term you want to give today, was like, force it. I'm like, force it? He's like, force it. Close your eyes harder and push your consciousness back into the center. So I was like, all right. So I close my eyes harder and I pull my back into the center. And then once it hit the center, I saw for a brief moment before Monkey Mind ate all of that, the frequencies pair up. Okay. So the first thing that's happening is that this nature, as we're calling it, this other world that is prehistoric, ancient, will always be here. When this one does whatever it does, that one will still be there. That's the one everybody will melt off into. We see half of it anyway through what we're calling sound. But because we don't pair it up, we don't really see it. So it's almost like, and I'm just trying to articulate what happens, the difference between having a active third eye and a non-active third eye. You're just seeing trees from two eyes, but this is nowhere near what it is. This is like 1 or 2% of what it truly is. When you mate the sounds from listening together and you center the third eye, you see like it was beyond a city. It was high levels of creation. And it was an organic world that is in existence, always will exist. And it's so much more vast. If you want to say higher vibration, whatever term you want to give, whatever happens here will not touch it. I love the as above, so below concept, but I think that that is as the high as your mind can go and as further as your mind can go is as above, so below. But on the big spectrum, while we would like to make that the maximum for the big spectrum, there is no maxims for the big spectrum. There is no ends for the big. There is no definites for the big. It doesn't have that kind of thing going on. So it was like, whatever happens there never affects here. Do you really think that we would let these higher kingdoms of consciousness and entities that are existing, even your own brain states and all that kind of stuff, be touchable by what goes on in a two-eyed, confused, double-blind world? No, that's not how it works. That is the simulation. That is the lesson. That is the university. Now, I don't mean that it's a game and it's fake and it's not real. I wouldn't play yourself like that. People who are like that, stab them. See, well, I'm not saying go do that, but stab them and see. It'll get real then. So it's not good to play around with things that you don't understand and then to make them less than they truly are when you haven't made it a definite of what we mean when we say that this is an illusion. As I said before, when we say this is illusion, we're saying that there is just something that is so much more real. It makes this like an illusion. So even if you could feel the energy and the love and everything going on here, which is great, that is still a precursor to what is actually going on in the grand aspects of things. And to get in there is the tutelage taking place here. This is the invisible college where you cannot really see the world yet. Some have seen it, some have glimpsed it, but the training, some have done that individually. The training is very specific. Turning sound from what you're listening to in nature back into sight in the third eye, not in the two eyes. Why? Well, it was explaining that. Well, our great friend Seven, once your eyes close here, if you cannot see in here, you are blind here. And I don't want to like drill it in on you, in a negative way or a positive way about why you wouldn't want to come into this blind, but I'm just telling you. Stay in your practice to keep this alignment happening, and we'll keep revealing more to you. Also, a few other things. So this is, by the time the mind is detached, I'm just sitting down taking counsel. I'm just listening to nature. Coming from this small little crack inside of the corner of this waterfall. I still try to figure out like what was going on in that crack, but I'm in this crack in the waterfall, and it's just elaborating on things. And say, here's another thing. It's about your energetic center. What's happened is that symbolically, what you need to do is you need to grab the cord, which is like your umbilical cord, and you need to like get all the way to the end of where it's connected. And I need you to look at what it's connected to, because it may surprise you. You may find that your cord of energetics is no longer tied into something that is serving you and serving the purpose of where your consciousness is at right now and ready to go to. So just check base. And I was like, what do you mean? It's like, well, where is your arousal tied into? This is for all of us. Where's your arousal tied into? Are you aroused to be here? Are you aroused? I'm talking about real arousal. Are you aroused to be here? Are you aroused to hear these noises of this great world and great plane of existence? Does that arouse you? Or is the opposite pole the only thing that can arouse you? Is the opposite sex, if you may, the only thing that can arouse you? This was a question being presented. And it was like, because the reason is that we're not saying that anything is wrong. What we're saying is you've gone the furthest that you can go through that level of energetic potential. You've taken it all the way. And you've also even witnessed many so-called adepts who say they understand these sexual energies. All they've done is just go further and further the wrong direction. It's like they didn't get it. They're now trying to bring this into a physical orgiastic situation, when what we were explaining is you have to be turned on by nature. And however long that takes, because once you're turned on by nature, and this is common sense. Once you're turned on by nature, like a plug socket, once your umbilical is plugged into nature and you're aroused by nature, meaning what nature has to offer you is arousing you and not opposite sexes and all this kind of stuff. Now you've tapped into regeneration. Now you've tapped into the inexhaustible source. Now you've tapped into the energetic field that can power all of what you have infinitely, not just periodically. Because first we start you on the periodics. That's the periodic table. Now we start you on the periodics. The periodics is little jolts and boosts of the energy, small wombs. And this is for everyone, because you have both of these poles in you. Don't think just because you're female, this is now your perspective. Just because you're male, this should be your perspective. We're talking about straight androgyny in this. We have a male, we have a female, we have a Sushumna, we have an Iden, we have a Pingala, we have a Sushumna. So we have this trimurti system. So being able to see yourself now and saying, well, what is arousing me? Because others, it's not even physical people. It could be video games. It could be all sorts of other things. And again, we're not saying anything is wrong. I'm just saying you've reached the conclusion of the energetic potential of what that has to offer, and it can barely power a third eye. If you do not want to be blind in the world that comes beyond this, if you want to have true sight there to see your way, because if you're blind in that world, you cannot see where you're going, so you don't know where to go. And whether there's guides or not, they say that there's guides. They say a lot of things. I'm just saying that to be sustainable, to move beyond even this guru thing, all of these planets, as we've been able to map out, every single planet, just like a person, has a situation it's dealing with. To move beyond that, you have to plug your energy in and know your energy is plugged in to more massive sources. I wasn't going to say inexhaustible sources, but as I'm practicing wisdom here, I'm realizing that the ancestors are stepping us up, literally, step by step by step. To plug into an exhaustible source, you need to know what you're doing already, and you need to be ready to go. You won't actually experience what people call life. I don't know how that'll play out for everybody else here. It wouldn't even be like it even matters. Once you're completely plugged into an inexhaustible source, that starts taking you first, through a regeneration process. So you go literally from being this old adult or elder or whatever you think, And then it starts rewinding. Now you're a baby, then you go back to the womb, then you come back through the other side of wherever you started out even before, as whatever primal form you were before. Then it goes all the way back down to a baby, and then you go back into being an element. Then that goes way back into being the baby of the elements, all the way till you hit. And then at that point you exit out, and nobody knows about what goes on over there. Don't let them fool you, because you can't articulate it even in English. Everybody can take that way for themselves, but others cannot take others through it. Meet me there. Straight and narrow is the way. We've seen that in the diagrams, that the same way you got into your consciousness, there's this little bitty tube. A lot of it's atrophying even. That's the bridge back to self. But don't look at, again, what is happening in the physical realm. The physical realm could never tarnish that. Some people are like, well, I removed my heart. I removed my spleen, or I had a vasectomies, and I tied my tube. How has that affected me spiritually? Well, that's why the ancestors came with that revelation about not thinking just because you cut something off in the physical reality that it's been cut off. Just because you've gotten rid of something in the physical reality that somehow it's gone in the spiritual reality. That doesn't work like that. So any parts or pieces that you removed in the physical are still there in the spiritual. So don't let monkey mind tell you, because you cut off your something, that now you don't have the power to do this. You've always had the power. Earth has been proficient in its testing of convincing us of things that are basically guarantees, like that you'll live forever. Convincing us against things that are guarantees. The lesson here in the university is to try to convince you against things that are guarantees, to see how you progress through that, to see if you actually believe that, especially when it's proven to you that that's not true. See how you adjust with that. We created this thing called death. It was impossible to create. It was more impossible to create the idea of death than any other thing, and we still got it off. We still pulled it off. Now we have a space where something like this that you would end even exists, and the space is testing you to see just how much of the common sense that you have. If you go on the journeys and you do the meditations, you'll find out that you're not a body. You'll find out that even when you experience something that you thought was death and now you're dead, you live again. The consciousness speaks, philosophize, talks. But can you see where you are? This is where the high levels of power is coming in at now this year. Is to know that you need to listen. There is something that you are doing in nature. But if you're trying to talk, you're not listening. If you're not going to spend the time, you can't gain the faculty. Kung Fu, martial arts, anything, playing the piano, playing the guitar, singing, none of this was possible without practice. Even the best singers have to practice. You got to go into a state where you come up with a new song. So there's nothing out of line here. But what we are saying is that the practices and the things that we're doing, I think we've hit the max of that on the external, and what we're offering, what's being offered here on the physical planes. I also know that because our meditations are very powerful. We're doing some very powerful things here. But I can also say that back during Mount Shasta days, they were also doing meditations, bringing in the white light, all pink fuchsias, all this stuff. We're still dealing with a situation right now. It was almost like they perceived that the meditations were going to stop what was happening. And that proved not to be true. So now we have this another phenomenon. That's what I'm saying. Meditations are great, but maybe not what exactly people think they're great for. And I just want to make sure that that's clarified. You're here for you. When we say the worldwide meditation, we're talking about everyone getting the opportunity from the world to tune in to themselves. Will that change the external reality? I told you how to change the external reality. You change yourself within, your external reality changes. Does that change it for everybody else? Does Newt Gingrich want you to change his reality right now and put him into a whole higher state of consciousness, and in nature, he's full lotus, No, that's not everybody's reality, and never will it be. Never, not if this is layered. So people are on different states of consciousness. We have people that are in a spectrum together. Like we're in a spectrum together. That's our school. Like when they say a fish is in a school and all the fishes are rolling together, that's the spectrum. That's what we're in. But not everybody is in this spectrum. So it's important for us to be wise here and realize that the greatest benefits that are going to come from all of this are going to be for you, because you're going to be the one that's living in the body that experiences the potential of what you're doing here. We have also brothers and sisters here that are bringing their geometry and bringing their connection, and that's encouraging us. If you ever been on a fast with others, it's easier to do. You ever had to do something by yourself? It's a bit more tougher. Try lifting a couch by yourself. Now let's go lift a couch with 4 people. So this is kind of common sense. The more of us that are here tapped into self and breaking through, the more that we'll actually be able to receive together. Will that change everything? That is yet to be told. The hands of time, no one calls them. If the world can get itself together like it's being begged to all the time, maybe we'll see something. But does that weigh on you personally? No. You have to realize and know within everything in every fiber of your vibration that what goes on out in this world does not really affect your highest states. But if you're in this world and of this world, when it starts to change, you change. Get closer to the unmovable. I'm not saying that everybody can handle the highest level of things and get into the unmovable, etc. I'm just saying draw closer to its bosom. Like that energetic power source inside of nature and the realms that exist there, make some friends there. There are beings that are inside of all of this that are wise. If we listen to them, wisdom does nothing if somebody doesn't. I can understand that you can't teach anybody nothing like that. That's what people call the forgotten gods. They just got tired of talking to people who think they know everything. It's like, when are we going to sit and listen? When are we going to actually develop our faculties? That time is now. So we're going to go into our meditation. We're going to remember that this is for us. We're going to remember to check the cable, because what happens is that for you to be here for everyone, you're going to need to be plugged into a bigger source. You can't be plugged into people that need your help. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? How are you going to fuel somebody else plugged into them? Like that's like 2 cars pulling up and they put the gas tanks in both cars. You need a pump. You need something that has plenty of supply of gas. So what's happening then is, remember, and this is real time situations, as we're in the house more together. Like me, I've kind of been on like a 10 year, being, because I'm in the jungle. So I don't see that many people every day anyway. But let's say, for instance, for those of us that are in the city and those of us in different places, and now all the family members all in the house, really for the first time, everybody's seeing their true selves. And of course, chaos ensues, especially on a dark moon. It's like, oh my goodness, like somebody may get killed in here. The reality is that it can get so intense in that space, or you can even be in your own mind doing this. But if you're in the space physically, this would become crazy if you're depending on the person for this energy, because this is basic dynamics. This doesn't mean anything's wrong with the person. This doesn't mean anything that's wrong with you. We're just saying that right now, what humanity needs cannot be provided by human beings. And the most that a human can do with all their attraction and all this that they have going on, it's barely reaching the bar to what we need. This is a need. It's not a want. We need to know where we go after this. So that bombs that will be facing us now with so-called viruses and forever with anything that they think could make us perish. If you want to fortify yourself right now, especially with the cosmos being so open like this, no rituals are happening. All of this stuff with the sports is all rituals, and it clogs the space because it sends this attraction. It deceives angels of light, all the stuff that they got concocted, which would be a whole nother show. But all of those, the torch and the ceremony, now we pass it to you, and all that stuff is all lower demonic, lesser key stuff. Now, time out for that. The only thing they have, like the only thing we have right now is internet. That's why they create the internet, so there would at least be something open. But are you going to use this to tune in to yet their only little mouthpiece of speaking out is this news? When you turn that stuff off, it's not even affecting the world anymore, unless you're right up on it. And that's why many of us have started this sovereignty mentorship, started the Sovereignty 2020 process of realizing what we would need to do anyway in the physical to not allow those kind of things to keep encroaching on us. Because let's be real, as long as bills need to be paid, and as long as lights need to be turned on, there's going to be somewhat of a concern about what exactly is happening in that system. So what are the real solutions for that? Well, I think that many of the people that have been here for the last 40 or 50 years on this planet and been working with consciousness already had laid out a blueprint. Get the land, get the food. Get people that you know are dialed in and tuned in that you can actually harmonize with, set that plan and intention with them together, and it will manifest. So there is a first level to this. Get your food growing. Like right now, as I mentioned, and I'll say it again, it's smaller than the room that I'm in. This room that I'm in, but you can't see the whole room, but just even this area that you're seeing in the background is bigger than the area that I have right now. A farm going on of vegetables growing that I go and visit every single morning. I just asked the farmer, I said, hey, because they're going to sell you, they want to sell you stuff anyway. They want to sell you the radishes. They want to sell you all this kind of stuff. I said, well, why don't you just, instead of just plucking it up completely, just pull it up by the root and then I'll buy it. And then I took that and planted it right over here, and it's growing great. So sometimes when we think about, well, how am I going to sustain myself? I need to get this, I need to get that. And you have everything you need right there, but it's about these actions now, not staying just in this and getting pelted, but actually starting to see, well, my food first. You have a directive. Let me take this area in my house. You don't even have to have an outside. Let me take this area in my house and do enough research about how to turn this room right here that I'm not using into a place where I can grow stuff. Let me then go and call, because everybody has different lines open. Not everybody is locked in and there's nobody can go anywhere and all that kind of that has not even happened. Right? They've got curfews and stuff, but you can still be like, hey, so where's the farmer market? Okay, the farmer's here. Let me just let you call him. It'll all open up for you straight and narrow, but the path is already paved for your feet. It's like they'll connect you with the person, the guy, oh yeah, I know exactly what's going on. Oh yeah, sure, I could just bring him right over. And then start the process of at least being secure that your food is there. Because that's like for us in the reptilian brain and the lizard brain, as we know, that is like first priority. That will cause so much chaos for you, not having a food supply next to you. Like they said, the reptilians have put the humans here, so they have a food supply next to them. It's just that the lizard brain needs to feel like it has food around it and nourishment around it in order to be okay. And then once it's okay, it just shuts off unless the other brains do what they do, like the reproduction and all these kind of things. So this just means work with nature, work with your food. Start instilling your food with energy. As you're building, as you're watering these crops, you're now its sustainer. You're basically like its God. As we said, consumption is a holy ceremony. To eat something is a holy ceremony. That's where the whole blessing the food came from. Now it's consecrated off into a hidden God's name. This was the hidden God Amenhotep, and I'm in Uru, but anyway, the name means a divine feminine goddess. So when you basically summarize it, it's just saying to give thanks to nature for producing. And then when you put your energy into it, like you're watering, you're the one, if you weren't there watering, you're the conduit. It wouldn't have water. So then when you eat it, the energy is exchanged back to you, and now you're honoring it. And then when you're honoring it, now you're through your actions, because when you get energy, the actions that you take is whether or not you debase or desecrate or honor that energy. It has nothing really to do just with the prayer alone. That is the ritualistic observance. But what you do, the actions on that radish or on that lettuce, and how that energy is spent up, is determining whether you honor that or not. But that's full circle. Pretty much. You grow it, you water it, you watch it being nourished, you pick it, you eat it, and then you carry out an action to honor it as the energy is depleted into the etheric realm, because that's what's happening. Even right now, I'm sweating, it's hot. All that's going into the ether. And that's your check and balance system. So, as I said before, the only thing that I'm really wanting to convey here in this message today is that we won't get anywhere doing the same things that we've always done. That same approach that this conscious community has been going at consciousness, I'm watching everybody running in this loop. Let's do this, let's do this. And I'm like, but we already did that. How much is that serving the situation? I think that there's something else. And I've been always like this. Anybody who's watching this, I've been always like this. I've suggested things, and anybody who's followed those plans that were also given to me. There's not mine. I just ask the ancestors. I just have a direct line of communication, and I come and tell you because I really do care about us. Like it's something that's in me. It's in my core. I don't have to try to be good. It's just like something I want to do. I want to help people. Now I have myself also in a situation because I want to help people so much, and then there's like few of us that really want to help. Now I'm glad that we're in these times because more people are starting getting old messages now from other people. Like, yo, what's good? I'm like, man, we was building together. What happened to you? But anyway, let's go on with this. I realize that maybe this has gotten a little bit more serious for you. So same rules apply as always. Tuning into self. Now this is a real time that we're dealing in with sovereignty where you need to be able to start somewhere. This is why these people, these builders, they know about the cornerstone. It's very important. You need to know where to start. You could get overwhelmed. Like you see this whole Jupiter energy. It's like all this stuff's going on. Now we got all this current coming out. Remember, they know this stuff already. As Neva was saying, this was the shoots and ladders game now. It used to be snakes and arrows. Now it's shoots and ladders. These ancient knowledge, enealogy, Joydish numerology, all this is ancient knowledge about the process because the order was the most important thing to our ancestors, as I said over and over and over again. Not just the gods themselves, but the order in which they came, because they answer many mysteries all the time. And if you can be in that course, literally, you would gain progressively more and more strength. So Wednesday, we saw this balance needing to take place. We saw what was put on the scales was $2 trillion. Now we're here on Thursday, which is Jupiter, and everything is getting bigger fast. All that current coming into the system, people are getting bigger. Their consciousness is now expanding, but has anything changed though? Was there something that you did yesterday to completely change out your field and where your energy is going to? Or is this just another stimulus that's like a dope fix where you're going to go into an extreme level of depression after this? Because you didn't take the opportunity while you were up to actually check, where's this energy coming from? Oh, snap. It's coming from an opposing pole. That can play out any way in your life in different ways. Let me connect this to an inexhaustible or almost inexhaustible source, the earth. Let me become aroused by it again. So that way it doesn't become so foreign to me, because what you're aroused by, you know everything about that. I know everything about the opposite sex, as much as a man can know. I do like a video game every now and then. I'm elite in there. Like, nobody can really beat me. If I put my mind into it, nobody can run. So I know everything about that. But about nature, and does it turn me on? This is direct levels of spiritual knowledge, awareness, and wisdom. That's all I have to deliver here. If you're not turned on by this, and I'm rapidly working on systems and things too, it's not just enough to sit there and meditate. It's not enough. I don't want to fool you here or trick you. I'm not a fool and I'm not a trickster. It is not enough to just sit there and and you feel so peaceful. But the work still needs to be done for that peaceful turns into an arousal. You actually feel attracted to what is going on in the hyper consciousness and the hyper awareness, because once you click that on, and many have done that already, many have experienced this. I'm not sending you out on a blue mission, nothing that you can't read in the greatest books about this is what was the highest attainment. It's just you're not going to be able to learn it from books. You're going to have to go and do it yourself, and it's waiting for you. It knows you're coming. It knew you were going to get there at this time. This is not something that's trying to make it hard for you. It's always been there. It works completely contrary to how the reality works with you got to deserve it and all that. That's not its story. Nature is a giver. It gives life. Otherwise we wouldn't be here. And all this other stuff wouldn't be here. So it's not even connected into that, but you need to do this for me. It's always there for you. But there is some prodigal child kind of behavior happening in the planet where many people have just totally walked away from it, tied into other sources that are actually running dry. For us to fully be able to nourish all the rest of these seeds, all these responsibilities that we have on our foundation. Remember, a foundation means that's like the soil itself. And people have to plant into your foundation. For you to be able to mineralize and nourish them, you need to make sure that your whole pasture is being irrigated and restored and regenerated by the force itself, if you have that opportunity. And I'm telling you that you do. And even more, a bonus to all of this is that once you can get aroused, your projector has enough power to turn on. That's how our ancestors were already turned on by this. And it gave their projectors the ability to see into the realm that is not this one. They started off in that realm. This is the shadow of that realm. They still exist in that realm. We have to see all this is happening. When we come in here, we drop down frequency. So we come into the densities, we come into the shadows. But the originators are always on high, or I'll say on balance in this. And they cannot be affected. This is very important because it also gives you, if you want to call it a safe haven, if you want to call it a harbor, it gives you an anchor, which is anchor is also the symbol of the ancient goddess. It gives you an anchor and a line. This is now the anchor has a rope on it, right? That's all symbolic. You get all of that to be able to restore yourself properly. But if you depend on the same old energies, they may be to give you some temporary stimulus, like, oh yeah, that feels good. I'm glad we're on point now. But they're going to keep failing you because they need the same thing that you need. So let's go get it. So this meditation is 15 minutes. I had to get that 10 minutes back or forward, as I always say, just to make sure. If this didn't make any sense to you, all I was saying is, listen, get into your meditation. If you need to listen to this again for those hidden jewels, maybe you listen to it again. I presume it is actually being recorded and still transmitting. But this is real stuff. This is as crystal as it gets. I just went in there and said, look, can you crystallize it for me at the state that I'm in right now? When I'm experiencing lows getting heavy, help, help. And it's like, where are you connected at? Let's get you reconnected. We got you. I always hear these. It's like you're even walking into a station or whatever. That's why I told everybody yesterday, go recharge. I went in there like, okay, great. Oh, wow. It's kind of like you hit into a pit stop. They start jacking you up. Like, oh, man, take off these tires. Oh, shit, what you do to the brain? Okay, hey, how you doing in there? I'm good. So I actually was experiencing that as I was going through the meditation. It's like they just, the counselor just trying to like, tell you, hey, so how's everything going out there? Let me just fix this. Oh, wow, what did you do with the flame? Whoa, oh my goodness, we got a huge issue here. Oh, you're still connected to 6.0. Oh, man, you need to upgrade. Look, we're just going to plug you right into the source. But this is the instructions of how to do it. And if you need a little bit more, because I'm also a very technical person, so so technically, how does this work? It's like, well, because you're only seeing half of it. I'm just reiterating this for you in another way so you understand what's going on. You're only seeing half of it, so you can't pair it up, so you can't see anything. When you only see half of something, it's so distorted, you can't recognize what it is. And right now, your third eye is in this condition where it's bent off to the right, and I need you to force it to come back to the center. And then when it comes right to the center, boom, it'll pop on, and you'll be able to see where to go very clearly. You won't have to take time to make decisions. Should I? How many of us have been in the should I moments in the last week? Should I leave? Should I stay? Should I kick them out? Should they stay here? Do I need this? And it's like, it's just burning up valuable time. It's because the lens is dirty. The lens that the world is seeing through right now has gotten super foggy. It's all cloudy, right? We talked about ideas and thoughts. A lot of people are at home. They're just, the monkey mind is having its way, just tearing stuff up. So we now need to switch the views, switch the supply back to what it was originally. Just always remember that. You're not reinventing something here. You're not doing something new. You're just doing something original. And original hasn't been seen really in the space in a while. And that's why we're dialing it in. So we're going to take this 15 minutes. We're going to take these breaths. The only thing that's really required here is that you take deep breaths. We'll have some guided meditations coming. I think one of our sisters is ready again. We have our brother Manveer coming to teach you how to clear up your energy. There's some womb healing that's going to also take place. But as we're setting this, because I think this is day 7, so we have to set the course. Now, I will dial in and set the course at least and making sure all of that is on point as much as I can. Right? But then others need to come into the space. There's 89 of us here. It does get thousands of views on YouTube or whatever, but as far as who is present inside of this chat, it's 89 of us. If you're out there and you're not in here, I would like to see this hit 300. That's just a like. It doesn't actually have to happen. I'm good where it's at. But if this can hit 300, it does assist. So this is also all of our responsibility. If you know somebody that's out there, they get into this. As I always say, oh, I know somebody, they get into that. I think everybody's getting into themselves at this point. Get them into the space because this is what's going to assist them the most. There's no charge for this. Like there's no, I don't like make tons of money because this is being done. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with us all now doing the best that we can for somebody else by turning them on to their own energy. That's the last thing here. I want to make sure it's very clear. If you got others that are just like, they just, at this stage, they are like drowning and they're insisting on pulling you under too, right? Just turn them on to the source. Stop letting them depend on you. You don't have the energy to sustain human beings right now. You need to plug them, tell them how to get plugged into the source and keep referring to them like that. Every time they come back to you wanting to plug it in again, just be like, look, just plug into the source. I got to plug into the source too. Hey, listen to this meditation. And as you charge up, yeah, you'll be able to give more ways of understanding it. You could take everything that I'm saying right now and put it into your own words and go and give it to someone. I could care less. But it needs to be conveyed in this way. Tell these people to tap in to a source that is more powerful than other people and replicas of the source. We're like replicas, clones, if you may. We have on the external, we're just replicas of this stuff. If we want to tap into the real, well, we really got to tap in. So let's take the plug of our consciousness, the tube that, because you're a tube and a spiral that equals you, that tube and spiral, and then plug it right back into the inexhaustible source. Unplug it from this system, their controls, and all of that kind of stuff. And just plug it right into the source. And it's going to let you know every single thing that you need to do. It's going to draw in all that power. And to remember, you got to spend the time. Every day, as we talked about in the recording with the Mammals, the first one was the message from the Mammals, the wisdom of the Mammals. And then the second was how to metaphysically, spiritually, mentally handle the situation with the coronavirus. There was jewels dropped in there about how to go into your own space, find the consecrated space in your space, on your land, your property, and even adopting a space that is around you, how to find out where the land is feeding from, and how to begin to do your own pilgrimage, which assists because every day, if you're at a certain place in nature and you just make it a point, it becomes a reference point in your consciousness. It helps your memory. It helps you connect. It helps you dial in. So I won't go into all of that right now because all that's available. But for those that are just tuning in, know that if you're leaving this today and you're like, well, what do I do still? Because you're trying to process it that way. The Wisdom of the Mammals, Part 1, what to do with the coronavirus situation, mentally, physically, spiritually. Those 2 recordings give you all the guidelines and all the keys of how to power up your space. So thank you, family. I'll take a moment for everyone to get into their meditative position. Sometimes I just kind of launch right into it. I see everybody like, whoa, let me get myself together. So everybody now can get themselves together for the meditation, and get yourself into your lotus positions, or things that work out well for you to be able to conduct energy with yourself as you dial into yourself and connect yourself into nature, as you check your cord and see what is plugged into, and do everybody a great job by unplugging it from them if it's plugged into a person, and then plugging it right into the original source. And if you want to learn more about the source, you only need to go into nature and you need to listen. And it takes time to stop thinking. That's why the meditative practice, it took me 6 months to quiet the monkey mind. When I came to Costa Rica, I had no control over it. After 6 months, I could hear a pin drop in there. Fasting, cleansing, and all those kind of things, those were the rewards. We need that now. So here we go.